Hello, reptile entrepreneurs. This is your host, Bill Strand, and today we are going to be talking about YouTube. Joining me today is Dayyan, who is better known on YouTube as Reptiliatus. The Reptiliatus channel is one of the premier shows that depicts responsible herpetoculture. We all are going to have our own styles, but when it comes to the core integrity and dedication to the welfare of our reptiles, Reptiliatus is a shining example. Now, usually when people talk to Dayyan, they're asking about his reptiles and his breeding projects. But this is the Reptile Entrepreneur Podcast, and so we are interested in what it's like being a YouTuber. And so if you've ever thought about becoming a reptile YouTuber, this is the perfect episode for you to show you what's ahead. So please join me in welcoming Dayyan Reptiliatus to the Reptile Entrepreneur Podcast. Good morning, reptile entrepreneurs. Today I am here with Dayyan, who you may know better as Reptiliatus on YouTube. Dayyan, welcome to the podcast.
Bill, thank you so much for having me on. We've been, planning this for a few months now. Time fleets away, and I'm very happy we can finally have this conversation.
Oh, absolutely, because there are so many people in the community who look to YouTube and say, I would love to do that for my reptiles. They just love reptiles so much. And so finding someone who's actually doing it and being able to talk to these people, it's an incredible asset for this podcast.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I'm very thankful that I get to share my experience and the pros and cons and that whole fun stuff. It'll be an interesting conversation.
Oh, yeah. And boy, what you've done with red-eyed crocodile skinks, I just love watching those things. I've been wanting to work with red-eyed crocodile skinks. So yeah, I'm there watching your stuff there.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the support. Yeah, they're really, really interesting animals. And I think it's like that with so many species, but we have so much to learn yet. So I do my best to share my experiences humbly, and yeah, appreciate you checking it out.
Yeah, well, we're going to get back into that a little bit later. But this is the Reptile Entrepreneur Podcast, and so we're talking about YouTube as a lifestyle. Let's start off with explaining what's behind your channel and what you do present day.
Sure, absolutely. So, for those of you that don't know, I create content that revolves around. Also, I have to say something. Apologize if there's a lot of noise back there. My male green tree monitor is climbing all over the enclosure. So,
he is welcome and encouraged to join the show at any time.
I can hear the screen in the background. Like, he picked a good time to play Jungle Gym over there. But anyhow, my apologies. So my channel revolves around my experience as a hobbyist, keeping and breeding and taking care of specialty pets or exotic animals, and really trying to, offer a lens into my experience humbly and show the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, while emphasizing as high of a quality or standard of care as possible. And I've been clear that I make mistakes, but really showing that growth and building a sense of community. So I just want to be able to share how amazing these animals are and how much I enjoy keeping them, and inspire other hobbyists. And then the thing I love so much about my channel and the other social media platforms that I take advantage of and have accounts through, is that it creates a sense of community. And it's one of the core aspects that I focus on, is just the positive community associated with my channel. I take a lot of pride in seeing the support that folks offer on my videos or in the content, in general, just the comment section. I see a lot of people supporting and helping each other, and it's something I really appreciate seeing. So I do my best to, radiate that standard. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm all about.
Now, are you able to do YouTube as a full-time profession?
Yes. So currently, that is what I do full time. I am a full-time YouTuber. However, and I think this is something we'll touch on in the conversation, I do have several different streams of income that supplement that as a career. And I think that's a very important thing to consider and certainly to do. when you decide to take that step and jump in with 2 feet and become a full-time YouTuber. So yeah, that is what I'm doing, but there are other streams of income we'll discuss further.
Well, actually, how about we just dive into that and talk
Okay.
about what it's like being a full-time YouTuber? What does it take to be able to make that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So where should I start? Like when I decided to and that sort of thing?
Let's go ahead and talk about what kind of different income streams you have right now, what it takes to make it work. We'll definitely be getting into the history.
Okay.
But where you are right now and what does it take to be a full-time YouTuber and make it work?
Absolutely. So yeah, presently, so YouTube AdSense revenue, so Google, for those who don't know, I mean, is paying you the AdSense revenue that you earn from ads and viewership, etc., on your content. So that is partially my primary source of income. But then naturally, as you see through my content, I have a lot of fun breeding projects and such that I produce many, if not most, of the animals that I keep, because for me, there's a certain sense of fulfillment you gain from being able to reproduce those animals in captivity. And I also think that there's an importance in having captive bred representation of all those animals. So by offering those animals to other hobbyists, I'm also creating a secondary stream of income. Some of them are, I guess, animals that generally fetch a higher price tag, which helps sort of pay for a lot of my costs and I guess assist with that. And then on top of that, and a very important source of income is finding partners, brands that you want to work with, that want to work with you, that want to take advantage of the advertising potential you offer through your content. So as your audience grows and the potential for impressions grows, brands will reach out to you wanting to advertise their product or company, etc., on your channel, on your content, whether it's YouTube or other social media platforms. And that actually can become a more consistent source of income when you really develop those relationships with those brands. So for me, I have a few brands that I work with regularly. One in particular, Exoterra, that I have a really good relationship with. And I'm very thankful to be working with quite frequently. And then there's a few other like random, I guess, tech companies that'll contact me every few months. And then there's a lot of other stuff you have to sift through because there's a lot of fake, kind of dangerous too, emails that will contact you, and you have to be very cautious because they're trying to scam you or get your account information, etc. So, but yeah, like those partnerships are very important as sources of income as well. So that's really where I'm at. Like it's my primary source of income is the channel itself, the revenue earned through AdSense there. And then secondary to that, and also substantial, is the brand partnerships.
Okay.
That
All right.
earn me revenue that way. Yeah.
All right. So how about we go ahead and now we know where you're going to end up. Let's go back to the starting of that first day where you said, hey, I can make this a business. And not only can I'm going to. What was that day?
Yeah. So I always laugh about this question because, I mean, it's an important one, but my experience in relation to it is like, I was in a very interesting place in my life. So I was considering moving. At the time, I was living out west in British Columbia, in Vancouver, and I was planning to potentially move back to Ontario, where I'm from originally. My family and friends are here. And I mean, YouTube was always sort of just an outlet for me to, as I mentioned previously, the intention behind my channel is like just express that love and passion for the animals and create content around it. And then every now and then I'd produce a video that would just perform really well. And I would see how that would translate into a source of revenue. And I was like, whoa, like this is like pretty cool. Although that was never my intention, it was really to just share that. And it was like fun to make a bit of money out of it. You know, you put all that effort in and it's cool that you're making some money. And it's like, what would happen if I decided to kind of stop everything else I'm doing and then jump in with 2 feet and do that full time? Well, naturally, I didn't do that for a while because it wasn't making me that much money. But what I decided to do is dedicate myself to consistently producing at least a video a week for several months leading up to my move to Ontario, which was in November of 2019. And so that was hard because I was working 40 hours a week. My day job, took a lot of my time, and finding the time to rest and take care of those animals while also producing videos was a lot of work. But nonetheless, I did that, and I saw how that effort translated into a huge increase of revenue. And I don't exaggerate that, just in comparison to what it was before. It was a lot more. The effort reaped the fruit, so to speak. And then so I moved back home, and I decided, you know what, I'm in a better position here. Because the big reservation I had was, if you know or not, I mean, it's kind of, I think it's happening everywhere, but the cost of living was very high in Vancouver. And that was a big deterrent for me to decide to do this, because it just, with the cost of rent and everything, I was like, I can't dedicate myself. But coming back to Ontario, it sort of alleviated those costs or helped. And I was like, you know what, I'm in a better position to say, I'm going to quit my job. Like, I am making a decent amount of money. I can budget this all and say, I can live off this. Let me give myself a year to dedicate myself fully to this endeavor and see where I end up. So it was like, I think December 2019, which, as we know, was very close to the start of the pandemic, was when I decided to do this. And it was very scary at first, because then the pandemic happened, and we were seeing, at least my experience and a few other friends who are also content creators that shared the similar experiences, your views are going up because everybody's at home, but advertisers were very cautious about spending money in that department. And so, your views are going like this and your revenue is going down.
Interesting.
And to the point where, if I'm not mistaken, I think there was even an email. I don't want to make that up, but I want to say there might have even been an email sent out by YouTube to express that there might be something you're noticing there in your analytics. I think something, or maybe that was just a friend there sharing something. I hope I'm not making it up, but anyway. And so you just kind of had to ride it out. And I remember that by maybe April or May of 2020, was when things kind of leveled out again, and I just kept grinding. And yeah, by the end of that year, I decided, I did pretty well. Maybe not quite as well as I did with my day job the year before, but I was doing something I loved, and analyzing my analytics were going up, So let's do it again. 2021 came and went after all the effort. It's a lot of work, of course, and I know I'm skipping a lot by just summing it up that way, but the reflection was, okay, I made quite a bit more than the last year. And so that's very encouraging. That's positive. You want to see that in any business. You want to continue to grow the business. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's very affirming, and I've continued doing this, and I'm very thankful that I'm doing something I love. I'm very passionate about, and I mean, yeah, I guess we'll touch on the pros and cons more, I'm sure. But that's kind of what led me to continue doing things. And because naturally, if it's not financially feasible, if you're not making enough for your lifestyle, your living, then it's not something you can do full time, right? But if you find yourself in that position that you can dedicate yourself, it's very rewarding. But I would encourage people to make sure they're at a point where, before they jump in with 2 feet, it's not a gamble whether or not you will make enough to support your living or your lifestyle. You want to already be making that before you jump in with 2 feet, right? Because hypothetically, like, let's say you're in a position where somehow your rent's $1,000. You don't want to be making $500 a month on YouTube and think, well, if I quit my job, I can make 2 videos. So that means I'll for sure, like 2 videos a week, I should say. That means for sure I'll be making $1,000 a month, because it should translate. Well, you can't guarantee that. So I would encourage you to make sure that you're in a position where you're doing this for quite some time. You're seeing that every month you're making at least whatever it takes to pay for your rent, your food expenses, your insurance, etc. Or, a good portion of it. If you have other streams of income, whatever, that works too. And then you can take that step, because it is risky. You shouldn't be just jumping in with 2 feet and hoping for the best. That is a recipe for disaster in this aspect. So ensure that your living expenses at the very least are met. You might be making some compromises. You might tell yourself, I can't go out for food as much anymore because I'm getting paid once a month by YouTube, right? And you have to really budget things in that sense. But the reward is that you're doing something you love. And if you really dedicate yourself, I'm confident that if you're already at that point, it means you're doing something right and you're going to keep growing. So, yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask a question. I may have to explain the question, but the question is, how much control do you have over how much you make? And the baseline of this is, if I decide that I am going to put in extra effort, how much can I say I will get extra money for that extra effort? How much control do you have over the process?
Yeah, so that's a hard one. And I think a lot of people will share a similar view to me on this. So you have to sort of look at it this way. Like, you're asking yourself that question because you're already at a point where you must be making a decent amount of money. Because the first thing your priority should be, if I may, I'm going to backtrack a bit, is you're thinking about these things because you've already created a channel that is growing, that is gaining viewership, and is gaining revenue because you're gaining a lot of viewership. So you already know that you are establishing an audience that appreciates and enjoys the content you're producing. So you have some level of consistency or reassurance that people are going to keep coming back, because let's say you're looking at your videos and you're consistently getting 5 to 10,000 views per video, or whatever it is, 1,000 views, 2,000 views. And you see in your analytics, looking at your quarters or your month by month, 28 days, that like it's growing a little bit, or maybe there's a dip or whatever here and there, but like it's consistently growing. So you can ask yourself that question because you have the reassurance that people do like the content. I think then it's a matter of just really analyzing it, knowing what people like, trying to really emphasize on the important aspects of creating content that attracts your audience. So if I'm making videos about whatever it is, let's say geckos, and I know that people like feeding videos, I'll make sure to do a few of those a month. Anything you can do that aligns with your core values and your message that gets the views, because there's an aspect of moderation and maintaining a good standard. But if you're turning it into a living or a business as well, you do also have to add some priority of ensuring that you're bringing people in. So one of the ways people do that is the element of, for example, clickbait, which I find it really depends. Like, I think you can use a clickbaity title. I think if it's not super sensational or damaging in any aspect to the image of the hobby, I don't really see a harm in your thumbnail representing some form of clickbait if the content that it delivers afterwards is educational and positive. Because that's part of the game. I know some people won't share that value with me, but I think that, like, I can, as a personal example, I know I have created a video where I was feeding my largest tarantulas that I own. And for my thumbnail, I sort of blew up or shrunk my hand next to a tarantula. So it looked substantially larger than it was, but it was still a burgundy Goliath bird eater, which was around 7 or 8 inches. I just made it look bigger because I wanted people to go to the video. Yeah. But then the actual content being delivered is honest and sincere and fascinating for most people. I can't think of one person that was like, wow, you made the spider look that much bigger than your hand. It was still really cool. You learned a lot. And I think that form of sensationalism to bring people in is appropriate personally. And some people would disagree. And I think it's, more power to you if you can just be completely like, I don't really think that's a lie. Like, I think there's an element of exaggerating. Some people saturate colors to bring people in. It's all because that is the first image. It's the advertisement to your video, and it's so important. I know I'm kind of going all over the place here, but
this is critical information.
Okay, perfect.
Please go over all this.
No, absolutely. So you really do have to focus on that. I know it's digressing a bit from your question though, but like all these little things you really need to do, because if you're at that point where you're thinking about these things, it's just about consistently creating content that you know people already like, and refining the small details to get as many people to that content as possible, and then focusing on all the little qualities like the call to action to have people subscribe, which subscribers are wonderful. You build your community through that. You create a more consistent audience, because if people are turning their notifications on, they're learning that you did post a video, right? As long as YouTube does send them the notification. But that's all very important. So the more you can learn about refining and perfecting your craft and implementing that into all the future content you create, the more consistent and the larger the audience grows and the viewership. Because at the end of the day, as far as YouTube is concerned, that specifically, you're gaining more revenue through more views per video. If you're doing like super chats, if you're doing live streams, sure, you can gain some revenue that way too. There's creative things. You can plug your merch. Also beneficial, because the more people that watch the video, the more likely there are also opportunities to make a merch sale. The importance there, is growing your audience. I think subscriber counts are wonderful. They're representative of the community you're building. But from a business perspective, I would argue that the views are more important. You could have 20,000 subscribers. That doesn't translate to revenue. I think that's another thing people need to understand, because I get a lot of people who say, whoa, man, like you almost have like 150,000 subscribers. But like if they go, you must be making so much money, but that's not what you're looking at. That doesn't represent the revenue. It's the viewership. The views on the video equate or equal the money. If we're talking about the business aspect, the money, right? So doing everything you can to grow your audience that way. And I really encourage people to align themselves with their core message, their core values, not to compromise things. Because I think perhaps we'll discuss this further as well, but it's very easy to kind of be reinforced, or to have that like positive reinforcement, like, oh, if I go a bit like, if I do something, negative or like, oh, like lizard jumps off table and runs away, or something that like you could say is not necessarily good for the hobby, but suddenly you got all these views, you find yourself in this dilemma, this moral conflict. And I would really
let your lizard ride on the back of your dog, and all of a sudden your views and income goes up. So well, that's the question then. You have figured out the system, and you figured out what people like, and it's views that are getting you the money. So where is that line that you draw between your purpose, the reason you started the channel, and giving the mob what they want?
Sure. I mean, for myself personally, I like to think I haven't strayed from my. I mean, that initial message has always evolved. I mean, I can't say that was my intention when I was in grade 11 and I started my channel over a decade ago. But I think I haven't really strayed from that core value of shining the hobby in a positive light that doesn't do any damage to it. But I also think that we have an immense moral obligation and responsibility in having such a platform and sharing content with this many people, an infinite amount of people that it could reach, in doing the right thing and showing the right things. I mean, that sounds a bit vague, but just not depicting, like, you don't want to encourage people to do something that's harmful to animals, of course. I think, dare I say, not moderation in all things, but I had an interesting conversation with someone recently, and they were talking about how, like, not so much anthropomorphizing the animals, but even kind of making them cute and cuddly. There's a world where I don't think that that's completely harmful. Like, I think we need to understand the difference between, say, like a dog or cat and a lizard. But I also see that the hobby where it's at right now, unfortunately, is very much under attack. And if depicting animals as cute and like adorable or something, or like, oh, it's sweet to like hand feed this crested gecko some diet, like it kind of makes it cute and everyone thinks that's adorable. If it's not at the expense of the animal, if it's not gonna, like, I'm not talking like, let's pet the gecko, like that's not something you want to do.
Yeah.
But if it's like, oh, this is my crested gecko, I'm gonna hand feed them, if it connects to someone and makes them want to be a part of the hobby. I know there are people that would say, nah, like it's a lizard, it doesn't like being held, it should just be in the enclosure. But I think that there is an opportunity there to bring more people in because they see like this cute animal too. And I think that you can kind of tightrope around there, like balance and walk that line, because we also really do want to encourage in the right way, but we want to encourage more people to join the hobby right now. Like, we do not want to be kicking people out, discouraging people from joining. This is a time where we need to grow in numbers and create as much representation as possible to show our presence and that we care about and love these animals that we're breeding and keeping in our homes. So I think that there is a world where a gentle amount of, and it's not sensationalism again, but just depicting the animals as having some sort of personality and such, because there's a lot of people that argue that they're not like that, like, with the tarantulas and stuff, it's ganglia and they're just walking around like hydraulic robots or whatever, and people will say that animal doesn't have personality, what are you saying? But if you say the spider's cute because it picked up some dirt and dropped it in its water dish, oh, he's silly, what is he doing? Like, I don't think that that's a big problem. And then funny enough, you'll get people that are afraid of spiders that kind of learn to like them because they're seeing them in that light. So there's a bit of a world where you can do some of that. But yeah, you have to be careful because you don't want to be doing things like I think in the email you sent me, as you mentioned, like showing the chameleon trying to climb a stream of water. Like that's harmful. And someone will see that, think it's funny and do it with theirs. And that is a situation that stresses the animal. It gets views, but that should not be the way you go about it, in my opinion.
I think that we as herpetoculturists have the responsibility to be ambassadors to the reptile world and both depict them as what's best for the animal, but also make them approachable so we can bring other people in to not be scared of these animals and to appreciate their beauty. And that's definitely a tightrope that we walk. But let's go ahead. And so what you said is true. That is what we would all say is what we should do. But does it come to a point where, let's talk about that point where your AdSense is down and the rent is due, and that, okay, if I bring a dog into this, I'll get more views, which is revenue. What kind of situations do you run into like that where you have to make a decision?
Again, for myself, I just don't think it's okay. Here's the thing. Let me give you another, not an example, but let me tell you what the consequence of that is. So if you do that, I think that it's going to not only harm your image, it puts your animals at risk. Like using your example, of course, your audience is going to disrespect your decision. So you might get a whole ton of views through suggesting from YouTube suggestions because it's clickbaity. It's whoa, what? He put a gecko on his dog's back or whatever. But the audience and the community you've worked so hard to build that is following you because they respected your core values, they respected the standard, is going to be so disappointed. And those are the last people you want to be disappointing. You're going to lose your consistent viewers. And that shouldn't be the motivation behind not making that decision, because at the end of the day, if your standard was to uphold, if your decision was to uphold the right high level of standard of care and practice in herpetoculture, then you wouldn't be thinking about doing that in the first place. But if you built your community off those values, all those people are going to be so shocked that you would be capable of that. And there are people that like they view things moderately, and that's always been something they've had as part of their content, and that's kind of different because I'm not saying they should be doing that or not. That's up to them, and I personally, it's not my thing, right? But for them, there's no consequence because they built their audience up off of doing a bit of everything. But when you have this standard and you do those sorts of things, you really do damage your image. It gets people talking, they're saying negative things. And you really, at the end of the day, like, you got one video that did really well, but like you lost and you hurt your community that values what you do. So I think you should be looking at that consequence more than anything. And
actually, even worse than that is you may lose that higher end and then gain viewers on the lower end. You may gain more viewers than you lose, but it's the type of viewers that you get. And now you're on a downward slide of a different kind of audience that you don't want to be sliding into.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point as well. I would encourage someone in that position, instead of looking to do something sensational, I would say just go to your videos on your main page and organize them from most popular to least, and identify what qualities the most popular videos had and why you think they performed so well, and focus on replicating something similar. See how that might work, because if it aligns with your values on your channel, odds are it's going to do well. I mean, I've had random flukes. I've had like videos. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, I made this video. It's so funny how these things work too. Like, everyone will tell you, you'll put this immense amount of effort and detail and time into editing this video that just underperforms. And then one day you're scrambling to come up with an idea. And for me, that video was my Sky Puppy video.
Sky Puppies. I love the Sky Puppies.
Yeah, one day I didn't know what to do. I had just come back from a fishing trip with some friends in Northern Ontario. And I was like, what do I do? Ooh, I don't have an idea. Like, I was hoping to have that video pre-scheduled and I just didn't. I slacked off. So I got home and I noticed that the silkworms I had that pupated for me, like, one of them had hatched. It had emerged and metamorphosed into this moth. And I'm like, that's cute. So let me just talk a little bit about that cycle of metamorphosis and show that. And of course, that video just goes insane. And we were discussing sensationalism again. I mean, for that thumbnail, I had a Pokeball open because at the end of the day, that Sky Puppy, and again, that in itself is sensationalism. It was just a funny name that someone on my TikTok actually said, this thing should be called a Sky Puppy. And I was like, that's hilarious. I like that. And I used it. But yeah, no. So I made that video. I thought this kind of looks like a little creature, like, it's adorable. Like, and so that was kind of my angle. And I remember it was just doing kind of like, and then it just went insane. And it was so funny because I spent no time making that video. It was so frustrating. I had a few friends of mine that were laughing. They said, you should change your channel to a moth channel. Like, it's funny how these things happen, right? So be creative within your world too. Like, try something new. I mean, I think you shouldn't stray too far, but I guess I'm an interesting example because I find that people that are into herpetoculture, a lot of us are very niche, or it's like about a certain type of animal, like maybe snakes or spiders, or like arachnids specifically. It's like one thing, and I'm doing a bit of everything. And I'm not saying no one else is doing that. There are people doing a bit of everything as well. But some people would argue that's so different that, like, it's hard to grow a niche audience. But I think it works. There's like something for everyone. But yeah, just like give different ideas a try too. If you're in that position as well, you might just like hit a super video or whatever to the moon.
All right. I want to go back to, we were talking about subscribers and viewers and how they're different. So what is the relationship between subscribers and viewers? And do you do different things to grow your subscribers and different things to grow your viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like we were discussing, to me, I can only share it as my own experience and what I feel it works for that. The subscribers to me represent the community I'm building. So I really do feel a profound sense of appreciation in the growth of my subscribers, because to me that's the community I'm building. I appreciate every single person that's subscribing to the channel, and it really is touching and very humbling to see that count grow. To me, the importance from a business perspective of growing your subscriber count is the potential for consistent viewership and viewers that come back. Mm-hmm. So by having subscribers, by taking the step to encourage them to, anyone in your audience, like anyone watching a video, there should be a call to action to encourage people to subscribe to the channel if it's something they're interested in doing, and then also to turn notifications on so that there's an opportunity for them to return to the next video. As your subscribers grow, as you encourage folks to turn on notifications, it then impacts your viewership, because you're creating an audience that is more consistent, that will hopefully continue to return to your content to watch the next video you put out. And that is the importance of growing your subscriber count and encouraging them to turn the notifications on, because you're building up that community, and you want to continuously remind people of how much you appreciate them, be sincere about that. And that's a super important thing. For the views, of course, viewership is important, because as we just previously discussed or mentioned, it represents in many ways the revenue you're going to gain, because the more people that watch your videos that are presented with an advertisement at the start or throughout the video at the end, that represents the revenue you're gaining through AdSense. So that is an important aspect too. And then as far as views, how you can focus on growing your viewership, again, that all has to do with viewer retainership. Like, are you going to have people stay and watch as much of the video as possible? How do you go about that? Editing the video to be, as smooth and engaging as possible. Maybe having a little tidbit at the start that's like, whoa, I need to stick around and see when that happens in the video. Or something I've been trying to focus on that I'm not good at. And as we discussed before we started the podcast, I digress a lot. And sometimes you might have an intro that just goes on way too long, and people are just going to be like, all right, I'm out of here. Like, this guy's blah, 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 is just talking his head off. And I want to get to the part where we're going to see the lizards being enriched and doing this and that. So I try to ensure that I'm not only using lots of B-roll, which is like the footage that you're overlaying on me talking, you could say, so it keeps people interested, but also making it short and sweet, so we get right into the topic, and things like that help a lot with viewer retainership. Also, as we discussed, the thumbnail, it's the first element that represents your content, so it's so important. Do not cheap out on making a good thumbnail, because no matter how good your video is, if that thumbnail doesn't look good or interesting, no one's going to click it, and they won't be able to enjoy the hard work you put into that video. So, and sometimes that's the opposite effect. There are people that produce a lazy, terrible video, but have such a good thumbnail. Like you'll be scrolling through YouTube and you see these videos that have 65 million views, and it's like a Photoshop thing of like a shark eating a lion or something or whatever. And it's like, whoa, you go on it, and then it's just some random clip from who knows what, has nothing to do with it, but that shows you the power of the thumbnail, right?
Yep.
So I think those are really important elements.
How important is viewer retention? And so we're talking about how long the viewer stays and watches the video, because your view is counted if they watch 30 seconds of it.
Right.
So they've seen the ad, you get the view. What is the value of the rest of the video?
Yeah, no, it's very important. Now, how do I put this? I always call the YouTube algorithm a curious beast, or a creature that is hard to interpret and understand. But through conversation with fellow creators and other people that enjoy the platform, such as yourself and a few other friends that do what I do, and thankfully it's nice to have that sense of community to bounce back off each other for thoughts and ideas. I personally feel, I mean, when you're looking at your analytics and you're seeing like the average view duration and things, you want everything to be in the green. And my idea of that is, so in the green means sort of that it's above the average of what you normally have going on for views. So like, let's say my average video gets 5,000 views. If I'm suddenly getting 6, it's going to have a little green arrow going up, like in my analytics, right? Just for those that are unaware. And so when you have things go in the green, especially like your viewership, in my opinion, that is all things that contribute to YouTube's algorithm deciding to push your content and give it more exposure to be viewed, because it's telling the algorithm, oh, people are really sticking around to watch this 10-minute, 20-minute video, or a large percentage of that video. Let's show it to more people, because that's advertiser friendly. Because we have to remember that YouTube as well is a business, and they will make money because people are viewing the advertisers that their advertisers are paying to have put on their platform. So their intention is to push the videos that are getting all the views. So when you create a video that retains the attention of the audience, it benefits you in that way. I mean, I can see it, like you do see it. Sometimes it's a slow burner, as I call it. You know, it's like not getting a huge amount of views right away, but it just keeps chugging along and growing. And so anything you can do to well, I mean, get the views up in general, which I think the thumbnail, and we didn't discuss it yet, but the title, also very important. Very important. I would argue more important than tags even. That really impacts those analytics, like the average view duration, the actual views themselves, and the engagement also helps, right? So people commenting and encouraging people to do that. And there's all sorts of interesting tactics people use. But yeah, so the title is so important as well. It's the first impression as well, along with the thumbnail. And I've read, and I mean, people might think I have it all right and I'm doing my thing and it works, but I'm constantly trying to learn and adapt and refine my craft as well. Like there's so many things I could be improving on. And I mean, one of the things I do is when I look into how to refine these steps and these important aspects of packaging the video to be as perfect as possible for someone to get into and enjoy. You learn that the title is so important. And it's funny, I've had it where I actually forgot to put tags on a video. And then just seeing how the video performed, I realized it's not that important at all. I think it can be helpful. Like I think in some ways, like if you're adding a few tags, and I know you've discussed this too on the Instagram side of things on your page, I think it can be helpful. And I think it kind of maybe helps classify the video into a certain department of sorts. So if I'm making a video about a specific type of turtle, I might put the species name, the turtle's common name, feeding, reptile, pet, and like Reptiliatus or something. And that way I know that it's kind of like, I try and imagine that there's this big bookshelf. And if I want this video to be in a certain space, how do I pick, like, I mean, sometimes I'm guilty of using the amount of characters it allows as tags, like full 500 or whatever characters. But I think if you're doing fewer, it's almost beneficial. And just like, how do I pick 5 words that are going to put this in a certain spot? So if someone types in black-breasted leaf turtle, my video is going to come up, besides the factor of obviously having the most views and whatever to make it at the top of the list. How do I do that just to kind of compartmentalize that video? And that's the only reason I really take advantage of the tagging feature. But the title is very important. So I think I've even heard that the first few words that are in the title like create the most emphasis on how like that video gets found and whatnot. So people will always use something like a little bit like catchy, like unbelievable or incredible turtle, beautiful, like some of these things. And that ties into maybe some of that sensationalism. But if you're doing this as a career, there are tasteful, there are responsible ways to do that. And it is an important thing. And there's a lot.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's great ambiance.
He's exploring. It's a bit sad. The lighting is way too bright, but yeah.
Let's step back. And for the people who are just getting used to YouTube, can you tell us a little bit about keywords versus tags, what they are, and what are the significance within the YouTube platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as we explained, like, sure, the tags, for me, I feel help compartmentalize things. A lot of the keywords, I think that it's funny. It's not something I even take advantage of all that much, but a lot of people will go on to different like platforms and do Google searches to find trending words. And that's a tricky thing too, because like, yes, you can look for those things in your niche, but then for me, I wouldn't want to be, this is my opinion, I don't want to be I don't know, like I don't want to sell myself to the keyword platform either, because there are people that'll like look for those keywords and be like, oh, this is trending right now, I'm going to create content around it. Like that is a smart thing to do by all means. I think if you see like, for whatever reason, giant spider is trending, you might decide to create content surrounding that topic. And sorry, to be more specific, you see that it's trending in Google searches, right? So that's like, you find that then is a keyword that you want to implement into it. So because so many people are looking this up, you're hoping to get a hit where your video is going to show up because it's implementing those keywords. At least that's kind of my interpretation of one of the ways that works. And I think it is important. You're doing yourself a favor to, I would say, you decide you're going to create a video around a certain topic. Then after that, you look for what the keywords are for that specific topic and implement them into your description or as tags, and then also if you can in your title. So I think that works well. But for the tags, again, I just think they're sort of losing their, not relevance, but the necessity. I don't think it hurts at all to use a few of them. But again, I even know people that don't bother with them, which is interesting too. I think it's still worth doing. I just kind of do it because I'm like, I should just put a few in case. But
just in case.
Yeah. So.
All right. So what does a day in the life of a YouTuber look like?
Sure. In my case, if I'm being, humble and honest, I think, for me especially, yeah. So I'm making every effort to create 2 videos a week, and that is usually my standard.
Dayyan,
yeah.
We'll go for honest. Don't worry about humble. Just own it. Own your greatness.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's funny. People will be like, "Oh my God, you're Reptiliatus." I'm like, I'm just a guy taking it. I'm just like you. I just do it in front of a camera sometimes.
I'm just like you. I'm just more awesome.
No. Well, I appreciate the compliment. I'm learning to accept compliments better. But thank you. No. Yeah. So for me, a week. No, I wake up, I start doing all my animal maintenance, like cleaning water dishes. Usually do that in the morning, get it done. And because as you know, from the YouTube side of things, it's like, sure, you have to plan out your videos. And as I was just saying, in my case, I do my best to produce 2 videos a week. I'm going to be real with you. The honest part, the last few weeks, I have not been doing that, but I'm very thankful that I have a few videos performing quite well. So it hasn't proven to be negative. There haven't been any negative consequences on the channel. It's performing very well, so I'm happy. Yeah, generally I produce 2 videos a week. And it's interesting because when your subject material consists of you sharing your experience keeping animals, it's not the same as you reporting on the news or whatever, like you need to dedicate a large amount of time to caring for and maintaining the subject material. Mm-hmm. So, I'm saying it like that. I don't like to call my animals subject material, but you know what I'm saying. So, a large portion of my week consists of caring for the animal. So I divide things up, a lot of my animals don't need daily feeding. For example, all the arachnids, the invertebrates, they get fed once a week, and I just check their water dishes regularly and top those off, clean them, etc. Some of the higher maintenance animals I keep are definitely the tree monitors, and the Chinese crocodile lizards are eating more regularly. The dart frogs especially are eating quite frequently, and the red-eyed crocodile skinks actually don't eat too often throughout the week. It's just like 2 or 3 times a week. So a lot of the animals are sort of low maintenance, but the amount of them creates a decent amount of work. Mm-hmm. And then so really, because my content revolves around just the care and upkeep of these animals, quite frankly, a lot of my ideas are spontaneous. I might walk into the room one day and see that a pair of my dart frogs have produced a few eggs, and or I didn't even realize that the petri dish has tadpoles in it now. Their gills are external still, but whatever. So I'll start filming that and watching them the next few days, and then I'll move them into a deli cup with some tannin tea and a bit of spring water, etc., and film every step of the way throughout the next few days, so that the next week I know I can produce a video about how these dart frogs just had some tadpoles. And then I know that in a few weeks I can do an update video when they're froglets, like that kind of thing. And the next thing you know, like your experiences maintaining the animals, like there's just so many opportunities left, right, and center to create content around it. And then I'm kind of just balancing out making that content and ensuring that a few times a week I'm producing a video to share that experience with everyone. So a lot of it is like that. One of the things I'm working on is trying to be more organized. I would very much like to have some like backup videos, if you will, that I can just...
batching. I've heard that word.
Yes. Yeah, batching. That's the word.
Yeah, it's a foreign word, but I hear it a lot.
Yes. So in an ideal world, I think creators would be doing themselves a great service to batch a few videos and just have them uploaded in case things get busy or they want to go on a vacation or something. And like, cool, I'm going to schedule these for then. But I can tell you, and I can speak for a lot of people, that nobody's that disciplined, and most of us are posting the video 10 minutes after it's done. So,
Except
I'd like
frickin' Dylan Perrin. Yeah, we're not talking about you, Dylan. You just stay out of this conversation.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, Dylan. But yeah, so it's just interesting. I mean, I would love to be able to do that. It's tough. A lot of people don't realize how much time. I mean, there's definitely ways to improve and speed up your editing process, but a lot of time goes into making these videos,
Yeah.
Never mind how many hours you might spend producing them. Like, especially the tutorials on how to set up enclosures. I would love to be able to just build my tanks and be done with it, but what a missed opportunity not to document the process and share it as a tutorial. Of course, it just makes it take 3 times as long. I'm not even going to say twice as long. It's quite a bit longer. If I'm spray foaming a tank, I can do that in like 2 minutes. But if I have to show 4 different angles to keep someone engaged and pause every time to move the camera or fix the lighting, suddenly, the first part of the tank I was spray foaming is dry by the time I finish recording it because I'm doing the next side, and it's tedious. And when you watch that whole segment play out in the actual video, you're depicting 10 seconds in a video, right? So it's people don't. I'm not saying they don't appreciate it, but they underestimate the time that goes into some of the content people produce. So when someone says I make 2 videos a week, you try and calculate it or translate that as okay, so you only spend 8 hours a week making videos. No, that's not how long it takes. You got it wrong. I mean, it depends. That Sky Puppy video didn't take very long to make, but there's exceptions. But and then again, it touches on, so I'm making the videos, but I'm also taking care of my animals, because at the end of the day, I'm never going to compromise that. If I don't have time to make a video because I let my water dishes sit around an extra day, that's not right. I will compromise posting a video that day to make sure that I take care of the animals, right? So that sort of thing plays into it too. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how my weeks go. I'm trying to kind of, I don't know, things will randomly happen. I mean, I have days where, for example, a few days ago, I realized that out of nowhere, one of my crocodile skinks decided to be aggressive and maybe territorial towards its mate. Or, I mean, I was hoping they'd be a pair to get along together. And so out of the blue, I had to stop editing. I was lucky enough to notice that he had moved up on top of the filter, I think out of stress, and was sitting up there and maybe trying to stay dry to not let the wound be wet. I don't know. And I had to just stop everything, call up my vet, who's a good friend of mine, Dr. Alec Brown, and say, hey, I need to take this animal to you right away. And my day of editing was not ruined, but I lost a few hours of editing. So things like that will spontaneously come up. But I mean, otherwise, I do try and build kind of a schedule, but I'm definitely not a good example of someone who is incredibly organized. It's Tuesday is editing day, Wednesday is I did try very hard to post every Tuesday and Friday, and it's something I'd like to discipline myself to get back into. But for example, I haven't posted a video yet this weekend or Wednesday. I'd like to post soon. But one of the things that also makes it tricky is as the channel grows, you'll learn about meeting deadlines for your partners. So when you have sponsorships and you're not someone that batches videos, what can become very annoying, I mean, not annoying, but you're doing it to yourself, is when you have a deadline for a video because the company or whatever, whoever you're working with, needs a few days to review and make sure they're happy with the ad.
Yeah.
But you're like, I need a video for Friday. Like, can you do this by then so we can post it then? But no, that's not always how it works, right? So you need to maybe produce. You might have to produce 2 videos instead of 1 for that date because that video isn't usable until they reviewed it. And I've even had it where I gave a video to a client with 3 days ahead of posting. To review it, and they weren't ready for me, so I didn't get to post my video on the Friday, and I had to wait till Monday to post. So suddenly I was only posting 1 video and I didn't have a batched video ready that I could have used as backup, right? So that's another reason you might want to do that. So that sort of thing can happen too. But yeah, I don't know. I can be very spontaneous with the way I do things throughout the week, and it's something I want to work on too. But at the same time, there's method behind the madness, and it's clearly been working to some extent for me. So, yeah.
I aspire to batch episodes. I remember one glorious. I'm in my 7th season of my Chameleon podcast.
Yes,
and there was
awesome.
one season. I think it was 6. I had an entire 3 months of episodes batched up, and that was the most wonderful time period of my content creation life. And it's never happened again. And I mean, it's just a great thing, but boy, it just takes a lot to do that. And especially if you're really putting effort into the episode and saying, okay, it's got to be right. It's got to be right. It's just really hard to make 2 or 3 of those or 4 of those in a week. At least for me. It's just so hard. Well,
yeah, no, absolutely. It is challenging. Yeah.
All right. So let's look at the world outside of YouTube. How have you expanded your Reptiliatus brand to other platforms, and what is the reason behind that? What value is there in doing that?
Sure. So, okay. So yeah. So just to be clear, so I primarily am on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and then I have started putting a bit more effort into Facebook now. I have a page there that I try to post on regularly. So for me, because YouTube is the primary source of income, I generally look at the other platforms as a means of creating community there too, but also in many cases trying to direct more traffic to the YouTube channel. I don't do the best job of that on, say, TikTok yet, but for TikTok in particular, the attraction for me was that the algorithm is just incredible. You can just get these hits where suddenly your video has several million views, and the type of exposure, like that type of exposure, even if you have a small following, is just like, you don't really see that on the other platforms as much. It doesn't happen as easily. So my personal goal and intention there is, besides trying to grow the Reptiliatus community in different spaces, is that I'd like to gain that large following and sense of viewership there so that I can direct people to YouTube. Now, to be fair, it's been tried and tested that like usually that's not a very easy thing to do. You might get some people that go and check things out, but like generally speaking, like people are on TikTok, they're not interested in leaving and going to YouTube, but you might get some of that. And there's so many different potentials you can tap into. You know, TikTok, for example, is a great place to share an inspiring story or message with your following. So I've seen people share. I mean, I'm sure we both have, where people will share their entrepreneurship story, share their business. You know, I've seen, for example, I can think of someone who makes homemade candles, and they're sharing their story of how they do that, the love and care they put into packaging each product, and then they're offering a link for people that might be interested. And then suddenly the next TikTok they're posting is them overwhelmed with emotion that they've sold out their online store or something. So you can tap into that too. I mean, for example, I might one day decide to share the story of what I'm doing here and all my incredible animals that I love and cherish, and how I've been blessed to be able to do some traveling, and that maybe I really want to be able to incorporate, which is actually something I'm hoping to do. Incorporate messages of how important conservation and preservation of the habitat of these animals in the wild is. Maybe then I'll say I'm selling merch to raise money to go on a trip to like do something like that. I might, there's so many interesting things you could do if you build your audience there, and it's a very easy place to do that. That's a great thing for TikTok. Instagram, I'm on there. I really like Instagram. I like sharing photos daily, and that I like that platform a lot. I think it's fun to try and post a daily photo of something or one of the animals. I'm interesting. Like I don't have a personal account and then like a business or Reptiliatus account. I just kind of merge everything together, which can be problematic too. But most of it is my animals, but then I'll randomly like share a photo of family or something that had a birthday or whatever. And I mean, that's just kind of my experience of how I go about it. But I think Instagram, out of all the platforms, is probably the easiest to successfully direct traffic towards YouTube. So, with stories and the little link button, you can advertise your video every time you post one, and I like doing that. Facebook's actually pretty good for that too, and if you were ever interested in trying to do advertising through it, you could boost a post, and I've experimented with that and actually found that sometimes I can get decent impressions just to try it, test it out and see what happens. So that's fascinating. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I'm doing with Facebook. I've seen a few creators that are at a point where I think it's after you have 10,000 likes on a page, you can start monetizing your content if it's maybe over a certain duration. So the idea has kind of come to me to like, I should put more effort into that too, because why not share the same videos? Because I mean, I hope everybody does this, but you should be saving all your videos. You can post them there too, right? Why not post it, share it there as well? So I mean, it's a lot for one person to manage, because for those that don't know, I do everything myself. I'm editing, filming, caring for the animals myself. It's a lot of work. I have started hiring a friend to come here and there and help with animal maintenance if I really decide like, no, today I want to focus on the editing, but I can't compromise the care, so I'll have him come do a few hours of work. But other than that, it's a one-man operation, so it can be a lot to manage. So I haven't really gotten too serious about posting on Facebook regularly, but I'd like to. And for Facebook, the main reason I like Facebook is because, as you of course know, the sense of community. Like back in the day, we were on the forums, but although it's tricky now with all the pages closing because people are accidentally offering animals for sale and other things, it is a very active and fast-paced sense of community that revolves around the animals you love. So it's so nice to be able to engage with the international community of hobbyists and share each other's experiences with keeping the animals, especially animals that are less commonly found. And when someone has a great way of doing something that works, it's nice to be able to learn from each other and encourage each other, build each other up. So I really love Facebook for that, and it's a great place to also share what I'm doing. So that's why I'm on the other platforms. And I think that's some of the ways they benefit me and what I do. Twitter, I am on there as well, but I'll be honest with you, I don't want to speak illy of any platform, but it's not my place. I find that there's a lot of negativity, a lot of back talk, and I've seen it referred to as like a cesspool of negativity, and I know that there's a lot of potential for good, and I would prefer to focus on that, but I don't know, like I have it because I just feel like I have it as an obligation. But if you follow me there, you'll see that I don't post very often. I should at least maybe be posting videos, video links and such, but I don't know, I go on there and I see a lot of negativity, and it's just not my thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's bring this discussion around to the people starting off right now who are saying, I'd like to start a YouTube channel on reptiles right now. What kind of advice would you have for someone starting in the YouTube of today?
Oh, that's a deep question.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so the first thing I would say is don't. How do I put it? Yeah, I'm saying don't to start. No, let me say find. Okay, so first of all, I would encourage you to really choose. You don't have to have a message per se, but I think that you need to decide that the reason you're doing it is sincere. That you have a message or a passion that you want to share, right? Like, I see people that are like, oh, that guy's making money, let me do that too. And I promise you that if you're doing it to make the money, like, sure, that can be a goal in the background, but if your intention is just to make money, you will become so discouraged because it takes so much hard work to even get to the point where you're making anything. So I think that your first goal should be that you have something you're excited to share with your audience. Maybe build a core message or goal around that and share that passion and just do it because you love it. If your drive is focused on love for what you're doing and not because there's this desire to make money, I think that you will be less likely to burn out, because it's easy to burn out because it's a lot of work. But when you're spearheading the initiative with a goal that comes from the heart, not to be cheesy, I think it really does help. And then I would say that in today's day and age, thankfully, technology is so advanced. Don't panic and think that you have to invest some insane amount of money into what you do. Quite frankly, the number one piece of equipment that I use is my phone. I do the most recording with an iPhone. I have other cameras that I use, and the camera I'm using is old. I use a Canon G7X Mark II. That's like a 6-year-old or 4 or 5-year-old camera at this point. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm at a point where I'm looking to upgrade, but you can build a very successful channel off of just using an iPhone or a smartphone as a piece of equipment. These cameras produce 4K quality footage at this point, and they're fantastic for close-ups. All the close-ups you see of my animals were filmed with an iPhone for the most part.
Okay.
And it's a great starting point. So I think that you can use that and start by maybe looking up some of the channels that teach you how to grow your channel. I'm trying to think. There's like Think Media is one that I found was pretty helpful for a while. What's her name? Catherine Manning or something like that. Catherine something. I there's a few channels that revolve around how to be a YouTuber. And I find that when you take the time to really learn about these things before you get into it, like, it's always a great thing if you're starting off with good content. Like, for me, it's fun to look back and laugh at my first few videos that is so bad. Like, and I leave them up because I want people to be encouraged to, like, it's like, no, look at my humble beginnings. Like, it's cringe, right? It's good. I like to see it. Just really do your best. Focus on consistency, because that's something that the algorithm, I feel, rewards. So it's, as an example, you're way better off to post one video a month even than to post 5 videos and then none for 5 months. Mm-hmm. Or, post one video a week instead of, again, like 2 videos a week and then just stopping for a few weeks. The consistency, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be the same day every time. I mean, if you take it that far, it's nice, because then people are like, oh yeah, like every Tuesday so-and-so is going to post a video. Like that's a great thing too. But even if it's just once a week consistently, if you can manage to do that, start there and enjoy the little milestones too. Like I really remember, like, my very first subscriber was the user is Jacob Hooper. It was in 2011.
Wow.
And, it flies. The bigger you grow, it's not to say you take it for granted, but right now I'm gaining about, I think, 400 or 500 subscribers a day because my channel is performing very well, at least for me. There's a time where you gain one a day. You need to treasure that and appreciate that, because whether you want to take the time to appreciate it or not, you won't have the time to look at each individual that's joining your community when you're that big. I take a great pride in commenting or responding to all my comments as much as possible, but I'm just at the point now where I can't do that. I don't have the time to. So these are things you can treasure and use as ways to encourage you as you grow that channel. So I would really encourage you to focus on building that community. Have a piece of equipment like a phone, because it really is great. It's a great tool, great starting point. If I think it's even, I don't know where he's at now, but Darren of Exotics Lair, the channel he has about arachnids and tarantulas and everything, it's massive. And the only tool he uses to film is an iPhone. So I think that should be a great source of encouragement for knowing that you can build a huge successful channel off of just that piece of equipment. But yeah, just taking the time to make sure your values are set where you want them to be, or your message is clear, putting the time into it, refining your craft through learning through other successful channels what works. I would encourage you to connect with other creators, because that sense of community is valuable, and you might even be able to collaborate with other people. I think another thing that I see a lot that I want to touch on is I see a lot of younger or smaller channels that'll reach out to big ones asking for shout outs. And I will be honest, personally, I don't think it works. It really doesn't. You have to understand that if you have, let's say, 2 videos up, even if, let's say, my channel gives you a shout out, someone might take the time to go check out the channel, but as soon as they see what's there, which isn't a lot, they're probably not going to subscribe, right? So I think what's more valuable is building honest and genuine friendships with other creators and taking the time to hopefully learn something from them and what they're doing, asking questions and building those relationships up that way. And then maybe you get to a point where you come up with a cool idea that you want to collaborate together. You're bringing them into your content or vice versa. And I think that's a really cool, mutually beneficial way to work with smaller channels. And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Well, what is in the future for Reptiliatus?
Ooh, good question. So, I have goals and aspirations for sure. I think as far as this year goes, I'm really just focusing on refining my craft and trying to consistently create better and better content. I might like to, as I mentioned briefly, upgrade some of my gear so that the quality of my content is better. And I'm sort of at a point where I'm really looking closely at the revenue I'm gaining from the channel and seeing how I can dedicate some of it into, growing the platform in a way, not growing the platform. What am I saying? Growing my brand or creating new opportunities that'll bring in new interests. So last year I had the immense pleasure, as you may know of, I guess as you would know, of going to Costa Rica. You would know, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was an incredible trip. I'm very blessed that I've been able to do a decent amount of traveling around the world throughout my life. But that trip was dedicated to herping, and it was just a profound experience. And to also be able to share it with other friends who are creators, and also a childhood friend who was our videographer. It was incredible, and it's something I would really like to continue doing. Of course, it entails a lot of financial commitment, so being able to kind of juggle, having the animals cared for and everything, making sure you have pet sitters, all that stuff, you kind of look at, as your platform grows and you're making more and more money, it's how can I manage this and be able to do more interesting things like this. We briefly mentioned, I said that I really do want to discuss issues of conservation and preservation, because while I think that conservation through captivation is an interesting topic as well, I do obviously see the value and incredible importance in preserving animals in the wild and where they live and showing their habitat and such. So I'm curious to see what ways I can use my platform and my, I guess, videos to show initiatives that have to do with herpetoculture, well, not herpetoculture, but herpetology, show animals in the wild and some of the organizations that are set up to protect these animals. And I've like dipped my toes into it a little bit. It's not quite the same thing, but even last year I made a video showing the Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre and the work they do to rehabilitate and help turtles that have been hit by vehicles and things like that, and the work they're doing to help species at risk. And so to be able to do that on a global scale and travel around and get involved and maybe even have a call to action to encourage my audience to donate to those sort of causes, I think it'd be a really meaningful way to change things up and add that to it. And then it's just kind of fun to like go back to the hub of like being back home and showing the animals here to it. So it's something I'd like to do. So in a nutshell, it's not that I would like to be able to do a lot more traveling. And I know that the pandemic inhibits a little bit of that, but hopefully things are improving. It looks that way. And I'm hoping to have a few trips planned for this year and then go from there. And after that, who knows? Maybe I'll be in a position to have some sort of educational center I can fantasize, something public to share. Yeah, because once upon a time, I did want to go into teaching, actually. And I mean, funny enough, I think I'm sort of still doing that as an online educator. Yeah, it's just a different angle, I suppose. But yeah, it'd be really cool to inspire future generations through some form of educational center to love and appreciate these animals. It's just not something I can justify financially yet, but it works for my home for now. But yeah, definitely the traveling and being able to show the conservation initiatives, something I'd really love to do, because the more people you can have set eyes on those initiatives and see the importance of it and want to care and do something to help, it really does help, I think. So if I can use my platform in a positive way like that, it's something I'd like to do.
Oh, I agree. It helps a lot.
Yeah.
So, you have any last thoughts or words for our budding reptile entrepreneurs out there?
I think, honestly, I'll say it again. Right now, we're in a very interesting time, whether it has to do with the hobby or not, but specifically our hobby. And building our community and protecting our community is incredibly important. So I think that whatever it is you want to do, whatever way you plan to express your passion, if you're deciding to become a YouTube or content creator in general, do it in a meaningful way that makes our hobby look positive, that encourages people to join and lifts people up. And do your best not to do anything negative that tears people down or that paints the animals in a light or shows them in a way that people could see the hobby as a bad thing. Because this is a very testing time, and it's very important now more than ever that we create unity, grow the community, and protect it. So I think you have that moral responsibility as a creator, especially. We all do regardless, but with that with the great power comes great responsibility, as we know from Spider-Man. It's incredibly applicable here. So yeah, I would really encourage you to do that and have it in the back or the front of your mind as you navigate through this very interesting style of career or expression through media.
Dayyan, I want to thank you so very much for coming on and sharing just so openly and honestly about what it's like to be a YouTuber. Incredible information. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. This was really quite a treat. It was really fun. It's not something I think about too often besides just for myself. So it's really nice to be able to share openly and hopefully offer something to someone out there if it's helpful.
Oh, believe me, I get the emails after these episodes.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is amazing what kind of effect people like you sharing like this have on the community. So it's a wonderful that you've agreed to do this.
Oh, thank you. That's very encouraging to hear. I'm so happy.
I also wanted to give thanks to Basil. Basil, thank you very much for providing ambiance for this show. Really appreciate your presence.
I don't know. Right. Now he's hiding.
Okay. That's okay. We have him on film.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Dayyan, thank you very much. And we will see you on the interwebs.
For sure. Take care. Thanks again, Bill.
You can tell by this interview that Dayyan's one of the nicest guys in the entire world, and it was a pleasure doing this interview. Dayyan, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for sharing so openly and giving us a view into what it takes to be a full-time YouTuber. For those of you who are following the Reptile Entrepreneur 2022 Business Building Program, creating an outreach of either a YouTube channel or a podcast, or what the heck, both, is part of our third quarter project. But it never hurts to start talking now. If you're interested in seeing how a responsible and quality reptile YouTube channel is done, just find Reptiliatus on YouTube. I'd like to thank you all for joining me and Dayyan here today. And now's a good time to start thinking about how would you create a YouTube channel for your outreach. This is Bill Strand signing off. Take care of yourself, take care of our reptile community, and let's see what we can build.